Hi, everyone. It's Lydia with the Avanti Wellness podcast and YouTube channel. And we're back for another episode. And I'm really excited to introduce you to today's guest. I'm here with Dr. Tom Ingegno. He's a DACM, which we're going to tell you what that is. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. But yeah, my main practice is East Asian medicine and the practices around that. Yeah.
I love that, and I'm totally into these types of things, and I want my audience to be introduced to all the different things that you're doing in your clinic and
Mhm.
the ways that you help people and their bodies heal themselves. And so I look forward to introducing you and then talking about all those kinds of things. So,
Sure.
in order to get started, can we just have you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah. So I've been in practice about 23 years now. I'm probably closer to 24 at this point. Um, but I got interested in East Asian medicine when I was in college. I was set up to be, I was a pre-med major, taking all my core biosciences, and through what I normally just describe as a series of serendipitous effects or events. I ended up at an acupuncture school during my junior year of college and got my master's degree in East Asian medicine, and never looked back. When the doctorate was available, I signed up for those courses just because I wanted to continue my study, and I was hoping to have a long, healthy life here. And 23 years in, I think I'm doing it pretty well at this point.
Yeah, you were telling me that you have a very thriving practice. Tell
Yeah,
everybody where
yeah.
you're at and what you're
So
up to there.
we're in Baltimore proper. So here in Maryland on the East Coast, and I moved down to Maryland probably it's going to be pushing 20 years now. But this is my fourth expansion. Charm City Integrative Health is our clinic, and we are the biggest single clinic in the state, and we're probably in the top 10% of size wise of clinics that do acupuncture East Asian medicine in the country. And that's really been a blessing. You to get up and actually help people every day is a great thing. And I currently have a staff of, I think we're 11. We're hiring somebody, so let's say 11, including three acupuncturists besides myself, three massage therapists, a fourth technician who will be an acupuncturist, and we'll put her on staff soon enough, and then three other technicians. So it's a great little group. We love what we do, and we get to interact and impact people on not just an individual level, but on a community level right here in the city. And I think the city really needs it. So it's a great thing.
That's awesome. So for anyone who just scrolled to the next episode and
Yeah.
has no idea what East Asian medicine or what it is that you actually do, or let's define a few things. So I'll give you the mic, but let's talk about like what is Chinese medicine, and then we can go into that acupuncture piece that you just talked
Mhm.
about. Number one, like people, not everybody actually knows what that is. So can you
Yeah.
explain
Yeah.
acupuncture and how it helps the body too?
Yeah, so acupuncture is part of East Asian medicine. Sometimes we refer to it as Chinese medicine because that's the country of origin. But acupuncture and a lot of these practices that are under that giant elephant that is East Asian medicine, as it expanded to other countries, even here in the U.S., it picked up some characteristics of that. It changed and evolved. So East Asian medicine, if we look at it broadly, includes herbal medicine. It includes diet and exercise. It includes meditation, breath work, qigong, which is breathing exercises, body work like tuina, ama, shiatsu in Japan. But these are all incorrectly named massage. They're modalities that look a little bit like massage, but they are very focused on goals. And that's not to take away from good old fashioned massage, but a lot of times people equate that with more of a spa experience when most of the roots of massage were actually in helping people recover. even
Yeah, and
Swedish
like move the
massage. Yeah.
lymphatics, right?
Yeah, yeah, and restoring musculoskeletal function, stimulating the autonomic nervous system, helping with vagal tone, I believe is the best phrase
Circulation.
now. Yeah, exactly. So all of that really, uh, i- it isn't just one thing. And what ends up happening, especially in this country, our licenses are in acupuncture. So that's kind of the governing body, if you will, in each state. But most of us are doing a bunch of those things. A lot of us teach Tai Chi or martial arts alongside of that as well. But it's all with the idea that this underlying principle that we want to go back, and even today we talk about functional medicine. How far back can we go to restore function? That has its roots in East Asian medicine, where what do we need to do to stimulate the body to work the way it's supposed to recover from this disease, or sidestep it altogether, or if we want to get really into it, suppress the epigenetics switch that got turned on, that needs to be turned off so we don't get sick.
Yeah,
um
I love
and
that.
that comes down to all aspects of our life, right? So now we have these doctorates in lifestyle medicine, which I think are pretty funny because they're just repeating things that we knew going back thousands of years, right? Get enough sleep, manage your stress, live life in harmony with nature is a lot of ways of looking at this, and eat a variety of foods, and eat what's seasonally available, and eat right for who you are, right? When we look at studies from a Western standpoint, we want these large numbers, sample size. We want as many people in it as possible, so we know how many people we might be able to help. But if you're somebody that does one of those things, or takes a drug, or does an intervention and it hurts you, what do you care if 90% of the rest of the population got better? So this is that case where, when n equals one, that's the most important, and that's going to be the person that's in front of us in that treatment.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing that I've always aligned with, and I'll
Mhm,
just tell the audience that I've been exposed to Chinese medicine and Eastern philosophy for about
mhm,
23 years. And the one thing that always resonated for me about how they approach the body is they look at the body as a whole. Like if
mhm.
one part is affected, the whole body is affected. It's like in Western medicine, they always want to just fix the one organ, like, oh, the
Mhm.
liver, but Chinese medicine looks at the body as a whole. Can you talk
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah,
about
yeah.
that?
It's pretty funny because the school I got my master's degree from, they actually had the word holistic in the title, but intentionally they put a W in front of it. So it was WHOL, as in whole being. It's pretty funny, and I talk about this a lot. I know a dentist who he does a lot of like amalgamate removal, like get the
Removal, yeah,
yeah, yeah, and he's
get
got
the
the hazmat
mercury out.
suits, and yeah, and the whole thing. And when he lectures, he'll say something like, at some point, they decided the teeth weren't part of the body. And if we look at that, like, think about how we treat psychology, mental health. That's on the other side too, right? That's its own thing. But how we feel physically affects how we feel emotionally. How we feel, emotionally affects how we are physically. And Chinese medicine, when they talk about energy, right, it got lumped into this new agey kind of space, which I'm really upset about, because that's not how Asia approaches this. It's a part of who we are. But the idea that those emotions, those spiritual, psychological components, are energetic, and then our physical body is just denser energy, right? Like you keep pressing it down, eventually it takes form. And all of them are intimately intertwined, right? We talk about Descartes and like this kind of I think for therefore I am, and later a British philosopher, excuse me, said, oh, it's a ghost in the machine, right? And Chinese medicine, no, 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 East Asian medicine, no, the ghost and the machine are one thing. It's just a matter of density. And you can't tease out one part, right? So yes, you're absolutely right. Western medicine is reductionist, right? They want to
Yeah,
know, if it's this atom that's causing the problem, how do we get rid of that atom? How
yeah,
do we
cut it
change
out.
that atom? and
Yeah.
and cut it out, kill it, whatever you have to do. Um, what Chinese medicine and East Asian medicine, I'm sorry I use those
That's
interchangeably,
okay. You're good.
um, but within that, the idea is how is what's happening in this part of the body affecting the whole and vice versa. And what we look at is thousands of years of data points of collecting little signs and symptoms and say, hey, when somebody comes in and this is going on with them, they might be saying stuff about this, or they might use these words, or hell, they might smell a certain way, or they may be craving certain foods. And it starts to sound more esoteric and out there, but it was thousands and thousands and thousands of years that went by with collecting patient data and putting together this kind of theory, which feeds back into okay, when we see this, sometimes we'll ask questions. I had a patient the other day that I started treating, and I took her pulses, we did the intake, and she said something about, oh, I didn't mention this. I'm putting needles in her at this point. She said, I didn't mention this, but I have a blocked tear duct. And I said, oh, that's funny because these 3 points on the toe that I just put in actually benefit the eyes and the tear ducts. And she was like, wow, how'd you figure that out? And I said, well, you said this, you said that, you said this. And she's like, yeah, but I never mentioned my eyes. And I said, yeah, but this is all part of that system.
You're like, you
Yeah,
didn't have to.
yeah. And it's funny because um one of my mentors, teachers, was in Japan. And he would say things like your patients lie to you, right? And it wasn't that they were intentionally withholding information or sending you in the wrong direction, but his point was that if we read the body, if we read the whole system, there's no need for the words, right? Those sometimes get in the way. Maybe I ask you something you don't know what I mean. Oh, I used an Asian word and no, I have no idea what that is. Or you come in with a condition that I've never heard of, and I don't want to sound foolish. So I'm going to go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. But when we take your pulses, when we feel the body, when we learn to look at those subtle signs and clues, it'll often put us in those right spots to help treat somebody.
Yeah.
And that's everything from even when we give Chinese herbal formulas, right? So I think we were talking offline where it's like it's not just one herb for one condition, or we try to have a formula that's balanced out and catered, and those herbs all play nicely together for that individual. Well, there's an expression, one formula, 1,000 diseases, one disease, 1,000 formulas. And it really depends on how we see that patient and differentiate it, right? So
It's
this is
it's
why
so
you don't kind of
true.
yeah, you don't kind of have this blanket, just do the same thing for everybody.
Well, and I mean, part of the conversation of why I wanted to have you on the show was to
Mhm.
have someone who also understands the way that I do about, like, I just want to drop this in our listeners' mind that Western medicine is what, like 300 year, I mean, the 1700s. Like, how old is
Well,
Western pharmaceutical
it's
medicine?
always funny because they'll always say Hippocrates is the father of modern medicine, but
Okay.
if you look at what Hippocrates was doing, he was talking about humors. He talked a lot about cupping. He talked a lot about natural remedies, and in no way is that reminiscent of what kind of has happened. I would say even since the early 1900s, and we see this in this country
I
where
mean, even if we're generous and we say
yeah,
1800s or,
yeah, yeah.
300 years, I'm just trying to put it into perspective. We don't need to go like down a whole
Oh,
rabbit hole about
I
that.
wouldn't even give it 300 years. I
Okay,
would say
so
like
right, we're just
150
being
maybe.
generous.
Yeah,
150
yeah,
years,
know.
okay, of modern medicine.
Yeah,
And how old is Eastern
yeah,
medicine? I
yeah.
mean, the number people give it is 5,000 years
And
old,
and
right?
that's and that's not and that's not ironclad either. And part of the reason
Right.
is like our oldest textbook that we have recovered is about 2,700 years old. Now it talks about texts that were around a lot earlier than that, and we have other writers, other physicians throughout history. But like one of the texts that I reference a lot is actually from Egypt. It's not East Asian medicine at all, and that's the Ebers Papyrus. And part of the thing that always weirds me out about that is I talk about it because I talk about cupping a lot, but they talk about nose reconstruction. If somebody lost their nose in an accident, they follow, I know this sounds kind of gruesome, but they follow exactly what we would do today in surgery. they knew enough about having to keep the tissue alive. So even when they grafted the skin, they wouldn't cut it completely because they knew it had to have vasculature attached to it to keep that tissue healthy. But they were doing these advanced surgeries that for a long time we're like, how do you get the patient knocked out? How do you anesthetize them? Well, they somehow figured that out. And we think it was all this primitive stuff, but they were doing
Right.
some very advanced things way back then.
Well,
And
and the
and I
reason
think oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, did you want to finish your thought about that, about the
I oh,
advance?
yeah, I feel like a lot of times now these traditional therapies are starting to make a comeback, and it's not just because there's a psychedelic revolution or anything, but because we're starting to see modern science go, yeah, there is something to that. And it's like, of course there was. We used it for thousands of years.
Yeah, and the whole point I was trying to make and why I brought that up to talk to
Mhm,
the audience is because when you put it in a perspective, it's not even it's apples and oranges as far as history. And so like when you're talking about the Egyptians, I'm thinking I mean, what we need to think about is how have humans survived and evolved to get us to today where Lydia
mhm.
Smith is sitting here
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this chair. There was clearly health and regeneration and things happening for evolution to let us become a species
Mhm.
now in 2024. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to realize something got us here and it wasn't traditional pathways that we're
Yeah,
like
yeah,
thinking we can't live without today.
it's such a weird kind of double-edged sword because certainly the modern advances are amazing.
Yeah, and
But
they're quick fixes.
I don't know if they're I don't I think there's shows like Ancient Aliens, which will like any kind of technology, it must have been aliens, right? We weren't that smart. We were
I'm
primitive. And
okay
it's
with
like,
that. Let's
no,
go there.
I can't get into that. I really like I'll watch those shows. I've seen way too many episodes. But to attribute some like as long as we've been Homo sapiens, we've had these brains and we haven't been as distracted and we were more in tune with nature. So it makes sense that we would figure things out. Right. We also kind of even the stoned ape theory where they talk about using psychedelics to increase our mental capacity. Uh that I can buy into more because yeah, we were trying to figure out what we could and couldn't eat. And
Yeah.
yes, some of us died in that
In the
pursuit, right?
process,
Yeah,
yeah,
don't
and
eat that,
they
Ted's
marked, this
gone,
one's not one.
you
This
know.
one is
But
not the
oh,
one
what
to eat.
happened? Oh, I saw God when I ate that. Yeah, so yeah, we started, and everything in between. Hey, that hurt my stomach, but I didn't die. Or hey, this hurt and I took that. Now I feel better. Right. So all of this stuff was part of our curiosity, part of our learning experience, part of our brains figuring out and documenting that. And for a long time it was probably word of mouth, but we were telling that and passing that on. And when we did have written language, that was a major jump for us. So I really like the traditional therapies. And even when I'm on PubMed now reading about things like cupping, and it's like, oh, good. They do have modern studies to back up what
Oh,
was being
good.
said 5, 6,000 years ago. And we can use terminology today that more Westerners are comfortable with.
Yeah, and I do wanna get into that, but before we dive into that, because that's a big leap, I just wanna
Yeah.
I wanna give the audience another thing to think about because I want to I'm trying to open and if your mind is not already open and this is a new conversation to you, I wanna help bridge that gap between understanding how what we're about to talk about can help heal the body, and you have a lot of and the body heals itself. Like we're not saying that this process heals the body or
Mhm.
that the doctor's healing the body. No, we're not saying
Yeah,
that. We're
look,
saying the body
whatever the
heals itself.
intervention, yeah, yeah,
The
whatever the
body heals
intervention,
itself.
the
Yeah.
body's gonna have to do the work, right? So, what we do in East Asian medicine as a whole is try and give you the best potential, and what
Yeah.
I'm seeing from, talking to other healthcare practitioners, I recently met, 2 chiropractors, and they're running a really big business based on nutrition and diet, but one of them came back from stage 4 cancer. I mean, it metastasized everywhere in their body, And he literally he had the ways and means to fly to Spain and study with this famous doctor who basically was like, "Look, I'll give your body the best possible chance to survive." Wasn't a promise. It wasn't here's what we're gonna do. It was massive lifestyle and dietary changes. And now he's out there selling that method.
Yeah, because it
And good
works.
for him because it works.
Yeah.
He's a living testament.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to let you talk. I'm going to let you run with the rest of the show, but let me just say this one piece that I wanted to
Yeah.
say, which is I heard something funny that someone said, and it kind of made sense. I was like, they said, if traditional prescriptions healed you, then you wouldn't need a refill.
Yeah,
And it's like, if you think about it, like the refill and the refill and the refill and how like my aunt says, I have to live with this the rest of my life, and we have a different perspective.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so I think there are alternatives like what you're promoting and sharing that get to a root cause and help the body heal
Yeah.
itself and regenerate new cells that can function optimally. That's all I want to say. And
Yeah.
we'll hear from you about
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
ways that you do that.
So I think and to kind of piggyback off of that, right? There's no guarantees in healthcare regardless.
Yeah. Your
But
body's
when
unique.
when when uh when you're seeking treatment, whether it's Western or more traditional therapies, you need to be honest and have those conversations. What does this look like? What does this mean for the rest of my life? And I think a lot of people maybe lean into prescriptions and surgery because either one, they're just not aware, and no fault of theirs, that there are other options because that person with the lab coat on sounded very official, and this is what they do. That's what they are
And
trained in.
has a lot of letters behind their name.
Yeah, and I'm certainly I have a ton of letters after mine, so I'm not going to knock Western physicians, but I'm saying that they're giving you the piece of the puzzle that they were told, that they went to school to get, to be able to reiterate. Um, Within that, if people are willing to do some work, if people are willing to make changes in their lives, because that is the big thing, and that may be, as something as simple as, well, now I take these supplements, or I do these herbs, or now I'm changing how I eat or how I exercise. And not everybody's there, so I really don't try and judge people in my clinic if they're like, look, I'm just going to get the surgery. Okay, if you're willing to have the conversation, I'll have the conversation with you. But if your mind's made up, I'm not going to waste my breath or hurt your ears. Um, Within that, we can still work with those people. We can still offer them, post-surgical
Yeah, it's a
therapy,
wellness.
and try and get more circulation. And certainly, I do think there's things that uh, not that natural medicines are not strong enough, but I think sometimes it's a little too late in some cases where things are so far gone that you do need some very aggressive treatments. Um, Within that, you want to make sure you're doing everything to support your body and your well-being outside of that. So I think people go, "Oh, I'm going to do this and only this because I was told it'll work, or because I think it'll work, or because," where I'm more of a blue ocean kind of mindset in that, like, how many things can you do to support yourself in this? So, believe me, over 23 years, I've heard some things that I go, look, I've been in, alternative quote unquote medicine for this long, and I think that's insane. But if they find value in it and it's not going to kill them or hurt them, I tend to support it. Why? If it's a practice that you think is going to make you feel better, there's some evidence that placebo does really help. So I'm okay with that too. But our clinic, one of the things, because we do a lot out of mainstream, right? So not only do we have our traditional practices like cupping and acupuncture, massage, moxibustion, gua sha. We do a lot of high end things like modern things, whole body cryotherapy, cold plunge, sauna, red light therapy, and it's
Ah,
funny because when I was setting up the clinic, all of those things sound like traditional Chinese medicine in my head. And people are like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, this has a whole body effect. It reduces inflammation, it improves circulation, it regulates fight or flight versus rest and digest, that vagal nerve tone, autonomic nervous system, however you want to call it." Um, but if we know if we can get those major pieces in line, a lot of the other problems tend to take care of themselves. Why? I'm not inflamed, so I'm getting better circulation. I'm not inflamed, so I'm getting more nutrition out of the foods I'm eating from my gut, right? Inflammation, leaky gut is yes, hyperintestinal permeability, but that's due to inflammation, right? So we know if we can reduce the inflammation, if we can improve circulation, we know your immune system is going to feel better. We know your glands are going to get better support, so they're going to do better at hormone balancing. We know that your ability to deal with stress is going to improve. We know that your immune system is going to get better. So everything we do in our office, and that tends to be more on what can we do to you physically, is really evidence based, right? So sauna's been around for thousands of years too. It's getting so much publicity now. Why? Because
Roman
a big
baths.
yeah, a big cohort study said if you do sauna 7 times a week for at least 30 minutes, you have a 40% reduction in all-cause mortality. That means all the things that could kill you fall by 40%. That's gonna be your heart diseases, that's gonna be your cancers. Why? It's getting your blood moving, it's helping, detoxification pathways. So you're going to be processing more stuff in your liver and kidneys, you're gonna sweat stuff out, your body will be healthier, right? It's cardiovascular mimetic, so it's like going to the gym and getting on a treadmill. So all of these things are absolutely amazing, and we've been doing them forever. Red light therapy, God, if you lived and you got out in the sun every morning, you wouldn't need red light panels, right? You might be in an area where you're not exposed to sunlight that much, and you might need that intervention. But early morning, late day sunlight, that's the spectrum of light that we're using in our clinic to help with all sorts of things: collagen production, circulation, reduction of inflammation, pain relief. Hell, we don't promote the aesthetics of it, but it's great for your face too. It makes you look younger.
It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
facelift in the
it
sun.
it it well, and this is on the other end of the spectrum is the ultraviolet, which we do need for vitamin D production. We need a limited amount of that. But at the same time, you this red light is not going to tan you. You don't have those risks, and the benefits are really measured, and they've been measured for over 40 years. So it's
Yeah.
even though it's new to America, it's new in our eyes, it's flashy, it's trendy. No, these are time tested therapies.
Yeah, my sister's doing it now. So
Yeah,
let's talk you wrote a book, you told me
yeah,
offline that you wrote a book about cupping. I'm sure 90% of my audience doesn't know what it is, and I
yeah,
know I've seen it on Olympic athletes, and I
yeah,
know it has to do with circulation, but I don't know anything beyond that. Will you tell us about
yeah, yeah.
cupping and then
Yeah, so cupping is one of these really, really ancient therapies, and we're not exactly sure where it came from. It's well over 5,000 years old. We know that the earliest writing that survived that we have goes back to the Ebers Papyrus. That's ancient Egypt, 1515 BC. And we think it came from somewhere around there. Could have been Greece, could have been Persia, could have been Egypt. But before the Silk Trade route was the Silk Trade route, people were still commuting east and west, north, south, and that information went worldwide. So people all over the globe were doing cupping therapy thousands of years ago. And one of the crazy things about it is it is very simple. Traditionally, they would do it with fire to kind of create a vacuum in a jar, uh, pieces of bamboo, clay pots, buffalo horn, anything that looked like a cup that you could get the air out of with fire. You could create a vacuum and you'd adhere that to the body. Now, what that does, and the more comfortable ones are going to have a wider lip. The buffalo horn I've played with don't do that. But within that, the idea is that creating this suction uh, pulls fresh blood into an area, right? So we talked about circulation, right? What ends up happening is that suction pulls the skin up into the cup and it bubbles up into the cup. It separates the fascia from the skin, the fascia from the muscle, and pulls fresh blood through that deeper tissue. So it has an effect on the body up to 6 inches. But what it's really doing is creating this localized superficial inflammation, right? We're pulling out all that waste product, all that stagnant blood from deeper tissue, and pulling fresh blood in behind it, encouraging healing. Now, the side effect, which, yes, if you watched the Summer Olympics, you saw circles on people. Um, with that is you break the surface capillaries, right? So, in the same way, I'm far too old for this, but giving people hickeys. Yeah,
Oh,
that is the same thing. I've applied a suction and I've broken the superficial capillaries. Now with this, that broken capillaries over the days that that red dot is still there, you have still increased circulation to that tissue, especially the superficial layers. So you have this initial relief of this chronic inflammation by pulling that blood up to the surface, but then you have this residual continual bathing in fresh blood to help promote healing and clean up those capillaries.
that's neat. So tell me when you when do you do it? Like, what do
So
people come in for?
yeah,
And
number one thing, and I can say this with a good bunch of studies behind it as well, is musculoskeletal pain. It really lends itself to large, wider muscles. So the back, the chest, the neck, the shoulders, the thighs. But now, and in my book, we don't talk about fire cupping. I want people to do this at home. So I want it to be safe. So I talk about the plastic cup kits that you can buy, the silicone cups, all the different styles that you can buy that are super safe for home use and still very effective. The other thing is they're dirt cheap now on Amazon, on
what's the
eBay.
suction? Where's the suction coming from? Like a pump
So
or something?
yeah, yeah. So some of them have like a one-way valve and they have some kind of a pump. It's either motorized or a hand one that you pump the air out of. Some of my favorite ones are silicone. So literally you squish it down on the body, push the air out, and as it grabs, it'll pull the skin up. They're a little bit milder, but they're super safe. My kids have been playing with them since the younger one was a toddler. And she's actually pretty good at it now. She's 11.
That's
Uh,
great.
but with that, it's safe for most of the population. We do go over some of the contraindications in the book because things like pregnancy you don't play with, and it's not that it's unsafe. It's just that we don't have knowledge on that because it's not
Data,
so
yeah.
great. You don't really want to experiment on somebody when they're pregnant. Um, but within that, the ability to apply it so quickly and so efficiently makes it an ideal home therapy. And for thousands of years, it was grandma's medicine. It was done in the household before you sought a medical professional. And the goal of the book was try to get it back into the hands of people at home because it's one more thing in their toolkit, right? Maybe they're still taking Advil, but the cups will sit right next to the bottle of Advil. Maybe you reach for those a little bit more and you start taking less Advil. Or, maybe it's part of your holistic kit where, you've got your golden seal and your echinacea for immunity and you start feeling a little sick and you put some cups on your upper back over the lungs to help break up congestion and get some circulation there.
I could see where it could benefit people who are bedridden,
Yeah.
who because you know how you get aches and pains from not moving
Yeah.
your
Not
body?
moving. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see, like, home health companies could be doing that, you know?
And
Like
there are some like super fancy, I think, over technical devices that hook up to like a big base that pump. There's like a time when I first started, I rented from a chiropractor whose father was a chiropractor, and this guy was retiring, so his father was probably one of the first licensed chiropractors in the state of New York. And he had a lot of like old school equipment. And he had this weird machine that like he let me play with, but it was a suction machine and it had these long tubes that hooked to this like rubber thing, and you put a wet cup in and then it would pump, and it would even do electric stim. Like it was really a crazy
wow.
thing. But it seems so overly complicated, and I think the reason I wrote this book is because it can be so simple. I can teach you in an afternoon. I don't need to talk to you at a doctorate level. You can get all you need to know and understand enough of human body function and why the cups work without having to have a doctorate or a PhD or a master's in healthcare.
Is
So why not put that back into people's hands?
Is
Go
that
ahead.
what you're building for your online course? Is the
Yeah, yeah.
cupping?
So I people the feedback we got with the book was, "Oh, we love the book. We love how simple it is." Right? I didn't want to make it this epic that you needed to read with a medical dictionary. We wanted something fast, efficient, and what grandma would tell you if she was teaching you how to do cupping. Right? So it's 131 pages. It's a real quick read. The course is because I understand some people are better as visual learners.
Yeah.
So we're going to present the same information, but then demonstrate the techniques. We're going to talk about the contraindications. We're going to show the different kinds of cups in rather than just a still picture, a little video showing how to attach them and take them off. And all of that has been framed out. It's really, as I mentioned, we have one of the busiest clinics on the East Coast. Time is always the thing that's the limiting factor for me. So we're slowly going
Yeah,
through
and
and recording
filming and
videos. Yeah.
everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Where is your book? You have it? Can you show us your book,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
on
sure.
the
So,
camera?
yeah, yeah. So it is the cupping book. The subtitle is Unlocking the Secrets of Ancient Healing. That was more of like what are we actually trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to give people back this traditional medicine that's from so long ago. But as you can see, it's not a thick book. You can pick it up and be ready to go in a couple of hours. And with like the little bit, just the chapter on the different types of cups available, between the book and a quick little click on Amazon, you could be good to go in a couple of days. Yeah, like you have so many options as to what you want to use. The other thing is there's this real commitment. Yes, the book costs money, the cups cost money, but once you have that knowledge, once you have those cups, especially the silicone ones, you're going to be able to will those to your kids. They're not going anywhere. So you have a technique and you have something for relatively low money that you can share with your friends, family, and take care of people.
Yeah. We're gonna put a link in your description so people can easily access your book on
Sure, sure.
Amazon. Do you have any referral or recommendations for the cups? Like which ones you
Yeah.
recommend?
So there's very simple silicone ones. The reason I like them is there's no moving parts. Like the plastic pump ones we talk about. If you walked into an Asian grocery market right now, you could probably find the like a really good set of plastic ones with a one-way pump. The silicone ones I like because there's no moving pieces. Right? I normally when we sell them at our clinic and I don't ship them from my clinic, it's not cost effective. It's cheaper for
Yeah.
you to get them someplace else. And I hate saying that as trying to run a business. But yes, to do it right, go on Amazon, buy some silicone ones. I tell people to throw them in their gym bags as part of their either recovery, right? When they got out the foam roller, when they've got the yoga mat out, when they're doing the stretching. Yeah, if your back is tight, yeah, pop a couple on. Have your gym buddy pop them on if you can't reach. And just stretch with those or just, sit there and let the cups do their thing. I mean, both are very valid recovery methods.
Yeah. So, in wrapping up, because I'm sure you have some patients you need to go see.
Yeah,
Um,
I gotta go to a track meet after this. So
oh,
I
I
got my
bet.
daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, in wrapping up, I did have a question while you were talking, and then we'll
Uh-huh.
kind of close the episode. But I was
Sure.
thinking about use cases, besides pain management,
Yeah.
but use cases like when people have fluid. Does it help with like fluid in the legs
So
or
I would
feet or
not I would
anything?
not do it over like lymphedema or edema
Okay.
proper. What I would do is if somebody's trying to treat that, I would go back to the root of the body. I would work on the low back where the arteries and nerve impulses are coming off the spine with the idea of hopefully getting more circulation to that and helping the pump work better.
Okay.
There is some contraindication to go over areas that are very swollen, and it doesn't matter if it's traumatic injury or it's something like lymphedema where there's like pitting swelling.
Yeah. Okay, so that actually makes me want to ask another question because I am
Sure.
doing on my channel, on the Avanti Wellness channel, I committed to 365 days in a row of
Wow.
rebounding,
Yeah, yeah. Good, good, good,
that
good.
that works the calf muscle to pump the lymphatic system and clean it out. My question is, could you put this on your calf if you're healthy and you have a
Yeah,
calf muscle? Could you put it on your calf muscle and
yeah.
create that circulation at your calf muscle? And would that actually help to push fluid through?
It's going to pull out of the deeper tissue. It's going to pull out of the muscle. But yes, it will increase circulation locally. So sometimes, and it's weird when we do them on the calves, and this is part of the reason I really like the silicone ones too. They're a little bit
Uh-huh.
more forgiving. In our office, we have to have a whole bunch of different size ones because if the muscle's too curved, I can't get a flat, hard thing like glass
Uh-huh.
to stick. But the silicone, when you press that on, it kind of conforms a little bit more. So
Okay,
those
on
tend to work
curvatures.
better. Yeah, yeah, those tend to work better on smaller, rounder muscles like the calf. And with that, I probably wouldn't do it while you're rebounding. They're probably just going to pop off.
No, I'm just saying, like,
But
no, what I'm saying
afterwards
is,
or
what if
before,
somebody
yes,
can't? Well, what I'm saying is, what if somebody
yeah.
can't rebound? Can you do it as a
Yeah, you you
stimulation
you
to
you
move
can.
lymph?
It is going to get more things circulating. With the lymph, especially down the legs, it's the return pathway that tends to get messed up, which is why we see so much swelling in ankles and feet. It can help if there was significant swelling. I probably wouldn't do it there. But if somebody is healthy and they're just looking for a little bit extra support, yeah, we even talk about a technique called sliding cupping, where you put oil down or a liniment, and then you drag the cup across the muscle. Right,
Yeah.
that would be more of like a nice way to get lymph moving, because what ends up happening is you have an edge of the front of the cup pushing the tissue down, then the vacuum is pulling it up, and then another edge pushing it down. If the cup is on very tight, it is not pleasant, but you can put the cup on milder and then do that sliding so people can tolerate it. That's going to be a little bit more effective for kind of increasing like circulation along a muscle group.
Interesting. Yeah.
Static ones will work, but you tend to need more.
Cool. Well, that was great. I'm definitely interested in learning more about cupping and how it helps the body. In wrapping up, what is it that you want to leave the audience with, and also tell everybody who resonates with you and your
Yeah,
work in
sure.
Maryland how to find you, what's your website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, the quick and dirty website to get everything about me, and you'll see links to our book, links to our social media, links to our clinic if you are in Maryland and do want to come see us. Is
Or
Charm
want to
City.
travel there.
Yeah, I believe me, we've had some people do some destination treatments. But within that, Charm City Integrative, TIVE.com, because we're really in a real integrative type of fashion. We want to make sure all our services play well together. But we also want to be able to work with any other therapies that you're doing. So charmcityintegrative.com. There's an about me page. We do a lot of lecturing and events. More than happy if somebody wants to have me come out and speak or teach a class. I will do that. But there's links to my book, all our social media, plenty of ways to get in touch with us on
Do you have a
that. We
YouTube
spent
channel?
Yeah, we do, and slowly that's adding more and more. Right now we do
Content.
have a Yeah, right now we have a public playlist of interviews like this that I've done. I think it's up to 40 something, because not everybody does video when they record. But yeah, that's linked onto our YouTube as well. So you'll see videos of me talking about cupping on TV after the 2016 Olympics, and some of the other stuff, acupuncture certainly, and all the things that we do on YouTube. So you can definitely see some videos of us doing these techniques that we've been talking about.
Awesome. Well, if you're complete, I want to say thank you for taking the time today to educate the audience on all the things that you're into and what you know and your expertise. And we appreciate you explaining things for us who don't quite understand it all. And we learned a little bit more about cupping today. So I just want to thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll have you back and we can talk about some other
Anytime,
aspect.
anytime.
Awesome. Well, you take care and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Mhm. Bye-bye.